All right, welcome back to another episode of Retro Muscle. I'm going to get right to it. This is part 2 of Bill Phillips' second interview with Mike Mentzer.
We're back with Mike, and Mike, you left off with, explaining the importance of thinking and being independent and developing yourself in that way, intellectually, and how that can reflect on, your success in bodybuilding and all things in life, I think. One of the questions that I like to bat around when I get a chance is, why do you think it is, and I don't know if you have any thought on this or whatever, but why do you think it is that people want to build their bodies to begin with? Especially, and I can say those guys, but you were one of those guys, Mike. I mean, you were freaking huge.
Yeah.
And strong.
Well, why shouldn't they want to build their bodies? When Sir Edmund Hillary was asked why he climbed Mount Everest, he said because it was there.
Yeah.
Well, what's most immediate to people? Their bodies. There's nothing wrong in taking care of your body or even wanting to build it, as long as it doesn't become a preoccupation and take your focus away from the development of the mind. It was the ancient Greeks. It was in the age of classical Greece, 23 centuries ago, that the dictum, a healthy mind and a healthy bodybuilding, arose.
And so
there's nothing wrong with building the body as long as you don't miss that most crucial factor or element, the mind.
Why is it that so many people have to take drugs in bodybuilding? I mean,
they don't have to. Nobody puts a gun to their head.
Yeah, that's true.
We do have volition. We have free will.
Why is it so many people?
Their value system.
Yeah.
They haven't learned to think.
Well,
actually, I'm not so sure necessarily that drugs are bad for people. I'm not against the advancements of medical science. If I were convinced that steroids were so terribly bad, I wouldn't have taken them myself. They can be bad without a doubt, just like aspirin can be bad.
Right.
People have a very difficult time thinking about this issue because of the hysteria, the public hysteria going on about steroids, especially in the press.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt that there have been abuses of steroids, and steroids, like any other drug, can be abused and lead to bad physical results. But yeah, most bodybuilders think that they have to take them, and once they decide to, they don't give it much thought. They take them indiscriminately, using again the almost childlike notion: more jelly beans are better than less. Then why not take more steroids?
Right.
More is better. Why not do more sets? Train 2 to 4 hours a day. Train twice a day. Train 6 or 7 days a week. Take all the steroids you can possibly financially afford. You see how childlike an approach to life this is?
Right.
There are more principles guiding human life than the idea that more is better. That is an ethical economic principle, as I pointed out in the first tape. You can't achieve success in a different context or another context without studying that context in and of itself and deriving principles therefrom, principles that will serve as guidelines for effective or successful human action. You can't take principles from one context and apply them blindly and uncritically in another one and expect to achieve any results at all necessarily. That's a very childlike approach to life. You have that one idea embedded in your subconscious from childhood: more is better. Then you apply it blindly to everything you encounter in life. Life ain't super complicated once you understand how to use basic principles, once you understand how to think. But unless you get there, it becomes impossibly difficult because you're never going to succeed. It does require a certain amount of mental effort, of course, over a period of time to understand the principles of thought, the laws of logic, but it's not infinitely complex. Anybody with a normal, intact, functioning brain can read Aristotle or Ayn Rand and learn the law of identity, the law of causality, how to use logic.
Mike, what about, we mentioned steroids, just your opinion about the legality of them and whatnot. We've got people like Dan Duchesne, who's a real character, and he just doesn't see any need for these drugs to be illegal, and now they're controlled substances and whatnot, and you literally could go to any pro bodybuilding contest and pick these guys off the stage and arrest them for internal possession of a controlled substance or suspicion of internal possession of a controlled substance, because you literally can't look like a pro bodybuilder without using steroids, in my opinion, and I don't know anyone who's done it.
No, you can't. I tell those who ask me about steroids, I say, look, it's debatable possibly whether or not there's a health issue here, whether or not steroids pose a real strong risk to your physical well-being. What cannot be debated is that there is a legal risk.
Yeah.
Now, what's the purpose of all goal achievement ultimately is to achieve happiness, self-esteem, confidence, inner serenity. If you're walking around all day long, Bill, with a knot of anxiety in your gut, fearful that you're being watched by the feds, then you're achieving the opposite of the desired result. Big muscles are important, people, but it's a reality that there is a real legal risk here. Now, I have some reason to understand that the feds have lessened or diminished their march on this thing. But they're still out there. I'm not so sure it's worth it. Why not try training? Why not try training naturally for a while?
Well, I'll tell you, that's the thing that I really try to get across to the people that I know and the people that read the magazine is it is debatable, in my opinion, as to what the risks are for the proper use of anabolic steroids in normally healthy people, but it is not debatable in any way, shape, or form that if you get busted with these things, you're going to be miserable.
Without a doubt.
And I know dozens, not just one or two, but I know dozens of bodybuilders who have gone to jail or who are in jail for being involved in anabolic steroids. And
well, I see it even now. Of course, working in Gold's Gym, I see and hear all manner of things. I hear bodybuilders talking about buying and selling drugs all the time as if they had never heard of these other guys getting busted. Some of these guys are actually quite innocent, decent people.
Absolutely.
They have decided that taking drugs does not pose a serious enough health threat to deter them from taking them.
Right.
So they decided to do it. But they continue to overlook the legal risk. And then sometimes I have to giggle and kind of marvel at their innocence and ignorance. These feds aren't joking. Yeah. They will put you in jail. It's not just a threat. Yeah. As Bill Phillips just said, dear listener, dozens of people have been put in jail. Some of these people are innocent, decent, upstanding people.
Family people, guys with college degrees and real-life careers. I mean, all of a sudden, next thing you know, you've got shackles on and you're sitting in a cell.
Now, what was that one issue I brought up earlier? When people don't know how to think, when they don't take the time to sit down, look out into the world, and identify and evaluate what's going on, which is something you can't do, by the way, if you don't have a sufficiently developed conceptual faculty. You have to have the concepts, the ideas, the words necessary to identify and evaluate the facts. Then what happens? You're opening up the path to any dictator who wants to come in and tell you what to do.
Yep.
And that's what's happening. We are progressively losing our freedoms, without a doubt. Now they're going after the supplement industry.
Right.
As I'm not a fan of nutritional supplements, but I would fight to defend their right to sell that stuff.
Right.
I think people should be informed about which ones to take and not to take if they need them at all.
Mm-hmm.
But the government has no right to legislate our lives. Who is the government anyway? Their track record ain't so great. They ain't the greatest thinkers in the world.
Right. What about you brought up supplements. Why don't I ask you a question that people would ask if they had the chance is, Mike, have you ever used any supplements, vitamins, protein, and do you recommend them to the people that you train one-on-one down at Gold's Gym?
When I was quite young, when I first started bodybuilding, I, like most people, read muscle magazines as if they were sacred scripture. I fell for their for their advertising blandishments, hook, line, and sinker. I took every protein powder, vitamin you can think of. I can remember my brother and I bring this up occasionally, and we laugh about it. Remember the stuff Huffman used to sell called protein from the sea?
That was probably before my time, actually.
Well, some of you older listeners remember that. You're probably giggling because that was the most vile stuff I had ever smelled or tasted in my life. And a couple of times I remember my brother regurgitating the stuff after trying to get it down.
Is it kelp or something? Or
no, it was some kind of fish that they freeze-dried and powdered or something or other. But later I went on to more seriously investigate the science of nutrition. I read several reputable nutritional scientists' works on the subject and came to understand that while the subject of nutrition is often confusing for people, it's actually quite simple. And I'm not seeking to oversimplify the subject of nutrition even slightly, Bill, when I say that all the individual really has to be concerned with is in obtaining a well-balanced diet daily. A well-balanced diet, by definition, listener, is one that provides your body with all the nutrients and calories it needs. Now, here's the important follow-up, Bill. The human body does not utilize nutrients beyond need. What happens when you consume more water than you need? You excrete it.
Right.
You don't have that same luxury with proteins, fats, and carbs because they contain calories.
Wouldn't that be nice, huh?
Yeah. What happens when you consume more calories than you need?
Fat.
Okay, now what do you need? Here's the important follow-up. What do you need calories and nutrients for in this context? To maintain your existing physical mass, number one, and number two, to provide for that negligible, this is the key term here, to provide for that negligible bit of growth that takes place even at best on a workout-to-workout basis. Bill, let's say you had the required genetics. You were going to train properly in the course of the next year, eat adequately, and gain 30 pounds of muscle. That is certainly a best-case scenario. As great as that is, 30 pounds of muscle, it only averages out to about an ounce a day, slightly more than an ounce. Realistically, Bill, how much extra protein, how many calories beyond your maintenance level do you really think you would need to provide for a mere 1 ounce of muscle growth a day, most of which is water?
Right.
Muscle is not mostly protein, it's mostly water, up to 72% in healthy individuals.
Right.
Not very much. In fact, I can explain to you how you can figure it out for yourself down to the exact calorie. It just so happens to be true that a pound of muscle, anybody's muscle, yours, mine, Joe Weider's, Jim Mannion's, whoever, contains about 600 calories. If you were to surgically remove a pound of your muscle and place it in a scientific measuring device known as a bomb calorimeter, it would yield 600 units of heat energy. Now, you're going to gain 30 pounds this year, right?
Dreaming.
How many extra calories beyond your maintenance requirements would you require in the course of a year? Would you need in the course of a year?
1,800?
18,000.
18,000.
You were a little weak in arithmetic. That's okay. So was I, but I loved English. 18,000 extra calories above your maintenance requirements per year. Not 18,000 extra calories a day, a week, or a month. 18,000 extra calories a year. Now, the listener, of course, is looking to devise or formulate for himself a daily dietary regimen, which is difficult to do based on yearly caloric considerations. In order to find out how many calories he would need daily beyond his maintenance requirements to provide for up to 30 pounds of muscle growth in a year, he would divide the number of days in a year, 365, into 18,000, and it comes out to 48 extra calories a day. Above maintenance requirements, only 48. Now, it's been hypothesized that that's not perfectly accurate because there has to be some metabolic cost in the buildup of new muscle tissue. And if that's true, I don't know that it is, but taking that into account with whatever degree of accuracy we can, all right, triple it. 48 times 3 is 147. You need 147 calories a day above your maintenance requirements to provide for the gains on a daily basis that would result in a 30-pound gain of muscle in the course of a year. Now, I'm not suggesting necessarily that everybody sit down and figure out their daily calorie intake down to the exact calorie. I bring this up to point out that you don't have to force feed yourself hundreds of extra grams of protein a day beyond need or thousands of extra calories. All you really have to do is consume a well-balanced diet, which again, by definition, is one that provides your body with all the nutrients it needs, and the human body does not utilize nutrients beyond need.
Right.
If you needed 25 milligrams of vitamin C a day, for instance, and you were to take a vitamin C supplement that gave you up to, let's say, 3,000 milligrams a day, that would not force your body to utilize even one more milligram than it needs, or 26. The concept of need is crucially important in the context of both nutrition and training. An individual should not train beyond need, Bill. Remember, we're looking for the least, the precise amount necessary. Any more than that is overtraining.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, the individual should not consume calories and nutrients beyond need. Now, what does he need those again for? For maintaining his existing physical mass and provide for that little bit of growth that takes place even at best on a workout-to-workout basis. And even at best is negligible. You're not going to gain 5 pounds a week or 20 pounds a month in most cases unless you're grossly underweight to begin with. At best, you're going to gain probably 30 pounds of muscle in a year. The average bodybuilder would probably be more realistic to expect to gain 10 to 15 pounds of muscle in a year, which actually ain't bad. Some people scoff at that. They think it's perhaps not even worth considering, when in fact it's a considerable amount of tissue. Take a moment, dear listener, and visualize sitting in front of you on your dinner table a single individual 1-pound beefsteak. You know how big a single pound of steak is. Now imagine 12 of them. That's a lot of muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Now take 1 pound and put it on your left pec. Take another pound and put it on your right pec.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to sustain that rate of growth, 12 pounds a year for 2 years, of course, you'd end up with 24 pounds of muscle. Imagine 24 individual 1-pound beefsteaks sitting in front of you on your dinner table. That's a lot.
That's for sure.
Now, interesting to note here, most bodybuilders, Bill, are already grossly overnourished. They're getting a lot more protein than they need for maintenance or growth, more vitamins, more minerals, more carbohydrates, and they're still not growing.
Right.
This is a clear indication that nutrition is not the problem. If you're overnourished, by definition, you've covered all your nutritional bases. You're overnourished. What could possibly be missing? Now, if you were to point this out to most bodybuilders, it would have little impact on their consciousness. They seem to be running around with some fuzzy notion that they're missing some magical supplement or magical combination of nutrients. If you're overnourished or even just well-nourished, consuming a well-balanced diet, then you've covered all your nutritional bases. What could you possibly be missing? See my point?
Mm-hmm. So where do you think the concept of this high-calorie force feeding thing came from?
A guy named John Perillo, apparently, who a while back made the capricious assertion that there is no such thing as overtraining, only undereating, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, I read that.
His approach to bodybuilding, by the way, is the antithesis of mine. I call my approach a rational approach. With a rational approach to bodybuilding, you understand the crucial significance of the concept need. The concept of need is of crucial epistemological importance, which means intellectual or logical importance. If you don't understand the concept of need, you can't formulate a proper theory of bodybuilding, of training and nutrition. You should not train beyond need. If you do, you overtrain and lose muscle.
Right.
If you consume calories and nutrients beyond need, you grow fat.
That's for sure.
With Perillo's approach, you end up losing muscle and gaining fat. It's an irrational approach. It's the black hole of bodybuilding. Remember I brought up the concept of a black hole?
Right.
I said this is not a dark age. Dark is dark. Black is black. That approach is literally black, and that is the black hole of bodybuilding. It's the antithesis of mine. It's an irrational approach.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to train beyond need. That is overtraining. You don't want to consume nutrients beyond need. That's overeating. It leads to the deposition of body fat. It achieves the exact opposite of the desired result.
That's for sure.
That idea contradicts every well-established fact in this context, in the context of building a better body, using weights, and eating an adequate, well-balanced diet. If you were to go to medical school or college to study nutritional science, you would understand, you would come to understand, you would learn what I stated to you at the outset of this portion, that all the individual really has to be concerned with regarding nutrition is in getting a well-balanced diet every day. This is something you probably learned about, as I did, Bill, and many of the listeners in high school. Our high school health teachers taught us that we should get well-balanced diets. It was determined at the end of World War II by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, presumably an unbiased, objective organization with no vested interest in hawking nutritional supplements to the unenlightened, by the way, that a well-balanced diet could be obtained by the individual consuming a certain number of portions each day from the 4 basic food groups: cereals and grains, fruits and vegetables, meat, fish and poultry, milk and dairy products. If an individual is overnourished and he's not making progress, then it's obvious nutrition ain't the problem. The problem is lack of a proper training methodology. In fact, most bodybuilders have this reversed. They have failed to understand the actual relationship between training and nutrition. They have it reversed. Training is the first requirement, not nutrition.
Right.
It is only within the context of first having stimulated growth through proper training that nutrition then becomes a consideration.
Absolutely.
You can take all the amino acids or Metrex or vitamins or whatever else they're selling here these days. I don't care how much you take, in what quantities. You can consume the greatest diet in the world, figured out by the most sophisticated supercomputer. If you don't give your body a good reason to grow, if you don't enact the necessary causes, those causes required to set the growth process into motion, and if you don't properly regulate the volume and frequency of your training so that you're not preventing the body from producing the increase, then it doesn't matter what you eat.
Right.
Or what you don't eat. It doesn't matter. Training is the first requirement. Nutrition is only a secondary factor.
Right. Unless, yeah. Now, I think that's one of the things we try to get across in Muscle Media is that we've never touted one of these high-calorie diets. We continually try to deprogram these people who believe that the more they eat, the bigger they're going to get. And one of the things that they're onto is that they haven't seen any change in their bodies for so long. They go on one of these high-calorie diets, and they notice their, clothes are tighter. And they go, this is really working for me. And it's like...
They're getting fatter.
It can be years. Sometimes it's months. Sometimes it's just a few days. But oftentimes it's several years before they really realize that they haven't gained any muscle, that the only difference in their body is that they've gained fat, and they look much worse when their goal was to look better.
Right.
And I think we're trying to help people learn that through Muscle Media. Another thing we've also constantly emphasized, another thing that Dr. Conley started in the magazine is making it patently clear that without the proper training stimulus, no adaptation will occur of any kind.
The greatest anti-catabolic is not overtraining.
Yeah, I agree. We talk about limiting catabolism and cortisol in the body to try to let the muscle tissue grow and not be broken down, and that is an excellent point. The greatest thing that you can do to prevent catabolism, cortisol elevations, is to not overtrain.
Not overtrain.
Yeah.
Overtraining, I'm beginning to see, Bill, is the most crucial issue in bodybuilding and actually all athletics.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of exercise physiologists have expended an enormous amount of time and energy looking to discover the stimulus, to discover and understand the nature of the stimulus responsible for inducing muscle growth beyond normal levels, but they spent a lot less time, not sufficient time, studying the importance of regulating the volume and frequency of training so that the individual doesn't overtrain and thus prevent the body from producing the increase.
Right.
You have to understand that the workout doesn't produce the increase. As Arthur Jones pointed out brilliantly years ago, the only change that a workout can produce is an injury.
Yeah.
If you impose upon your body a force greater than the structural or integrity of the body can withstand, an injury will be produced.
Mm-hmm.
The body produces the growth during the rest period.
Right.
It only stands to reason if the rest period is not sufficiently long, i.e. if there are any more sets or any more workouts conducted or performed in a given unit of time than required to stimulate the increase. To that extent you overtrain, and to the extent that you overtrain, you will hamper and possibly prevent the production of the increase.
Right.
The body produces the increase after the workout, but that takes time. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Proper training methodology is the most important thing by far.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, without that initial stimulus, and then without, like you said, nutrition is whether people want to do it through some type of supplement that makes it more convenient and easy to get the regular feedings they need with their busy lifestyles, and a food distribution system that is as fucked up as anything you can imagine, where the most available forms of food in this society and the most inexpensive are the highest in fat and lowest in nutrients.
Right.
And the highest in calories. So you want to talk about something that's screwed up.
Yeah.
And people that want to be health conscious and build their bodies and be healthy and not put on fat, body fat like the bodybuilders want to avoid is it's an important thing that they can get to the food that they need. And, this country's food distribution system is not good. It really isn't. And the more...
Well, in large part because of government regulation.
Well, something's screwed up because, like you say, there's a trend where, human beings are living longer, but I predict within the next decade, life expectancy of people in this country, at least, will start to decline because of the way they're fed.
Uh-huh.
So let's say that nutrition for the bodybuilder is a given if he assumes that, or if that bodybuilder can make the decision not to, fall for the fraud in this country's food distribution system, that they somehow get, a high nutrient, calorie compact diet, whether it's through supplementation or by being wise enough to choose the right foods.
Uh-huh.
Let's say that that's a given. Now I want to ask you some questions about specific training with the nutrition set to the side and saying, okay, high nutrients, low in calories, you and I both agree on that.
Uh-huh.
And let me get some specific information on training.
Okay.
Now, the guy that's starting your program, let's say you're training him, or let's say it's me, I work out on Monday. And I want to know how to group my body parts. And I think last time we talked about training chest and back together.
Chest and back on the same day.
Okay, now I want to go in and I'm going to warm up the chest muscles by doing maybe 2 sets of 10 with 135 pounds on the bench press.
Well, it's difficult, if not impossible, to give everybody a perfect warming up program because warm-up needs vary, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
They vary according to the individual's age, his existing physical condition, and even the temperature of the gym can affect warm-up needs. But there is a general principle here that will serve as an effective guideline, and the principle is this. Perform any amount of warming up that you believe to be minimally required. What you have learned through experience is minimally required so that you're secure in the knowledge you can proceed to the intense portion of the workout and not injure yourself.
Okay. So it's an individual thing, and it's something that most experienced lifters will come to recognize as,
almost immediately, yeah.
Okay.
Now, it's also true here that the program that I recommend is a high-intensity, low to moderate force exercise program. It is not a powerlifting program, i.e. high-intensity, high force. I am not recommending people to do 1 to 3 rep maximums.
Right.
I recommend that they do 6 to 10 reps to failure. If an individual is performing his sets with the weight that allows 6 to 10 reps in reasonably strict fashion, it's not very likely he's going to hurt himself.
Mm-hmm.
The first several reps, in other words, serve as a further warm-up.
Yeah, it's true.
If he was a power lifter training in such a way that he's doing 1 to 3 reps, then he'd have to do a different kind of a warming-up program.
Right.
But this is not powerlifting. We're not looking to demonstrate strength here. We're looking to build strength and size, a different type of training.
Right.
So don't worry about getting injured with this type of training program. I get a lot of questions on this. And the best way to answer it is by pointing out again that this is a high-intensity, low to moderate force exercise regimen.
Mm-hmm. What about Okay, like I said, for me, I need a few sets, maybe 2-3 sets of moderate weight bench pressing and things like that, and then I'm ready to go into my one set, where I do flies and then incline press. That's what you would recommend?
Yep.
Okay, I do flies, and it seems like next thing you know, I pick up a weight that I think I'm only going to be able to get 10 times, but if I honestly push myself, I come up with 22 reps. And then I drop that, and I go straight to the incline press, and...
Hold on, say that again?
I think I keep underestimating my strength, and I talk to another number of other people who say, they're ending up in a high rep mode.
Oh, okay.
Just...
All right.
like I...
The 6 to 10... The 6 to 10 reps is merely a guideline figure.
Mm-hmm.
What is the stimulus? Remember in the first tape I went into some detail about the nature of the stimulus responsible for inducing muscle growth beyond normal levels in human beings. It's that last rep.
Yes.
When you're trying as hard as you can and you're barely able to make it. The rep that requires 100% intensity of effort.
Right.
That rep is very special. There is something that goes on physiologically during that last rep when you're trying as hard as you can. There is something that goes on physiologically that is responsible for flipping on the growth machinery inside the muscle cell.
Right.
Whether it's 6 reps or 10 reps or 15 or perhaps even 20. I don't know much. I don't pretend to have given much thought to the subject of rep range. I'm not sure that anybody has given it sufficient thought to make a real strong pronouncement about it. My advice is choose a weight that allows you to perform approximately 6 to 10 reps in reasonably strict fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say in a given workout, however, Bill, you're doing curls, and by the 8th rep, you clearly recognize you're not going to get 9 or 10 to failure.
Right.
You're not going to fail at 9 or 10. You're going to fail at 13 or 14. That's okay. Don't stop and reload at number 8. Go to failure at 13 or 14 or even 15. Don't do even a half a set more than is suggested. When I say it's easy to overtrain, I mean it's very easy to overtrain. You wouldn't want your anesthesiologist to give you even a little bit more anesthesia than is required, would you?
No.
It's the concept of specificity once again.
Well, so the next time you just need to gauge and use a heavier weight to begin with so that you don't end up pumping out 20 reps.
Right.
Okay.
Now, I know you were spreading a little bit thick there for your listeners. It's doubtful that you were going to 22 reps on a regular basis because you have the knowledge, the experience to know approximately what weight you'll need. But and that's true for most of the listeners. When they start this, they may have a little difficulty at first, but after the first workout or two, they should be able to arrive at a weight that will get them approximately 6 to 10. And again, 6 to 10 is a suggested guideline.
Right.
If in another workout you're doing curls again, and by the 3rd rep you see you're not going to fail at 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, but at 4 or 5, don't stop and reload there either. Fail at 4 or 5. Your next workout you'll get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or even more.
Now, here's a key question. Every single workout I should increase either weight or reps.
Right.
And what if I can't?
Then you're doing something wrong. If you're not making progress, there's a reason, like there's a reason for everything in this universe, including lack of bodybuilding progress. If you're not making progress, then you're violating either 1, 2, or all 3 of the principles of the theory of high-intensity training, the one and only valid theory of productive bodybuilding exercise. If you're not making progress, then either number 1, you're not training intensely enough to stimulate the increase.
Right.
And or number 2, you're doing so many sets, and or number 3, so many workouts. Your workouts are not brief and infrequent enough. You're preventing the body from producing any increase that might have been stimulated as a result of the workout.
Mm-hmm. Now, do I necessarily need to feel a pump to get a good workout? I mean, some people are, convinced.
Well, you will get some degree of pump no matter what kind of a program you follow, including heavy-duty, high-intensity training. I have had quite a few people report to me that they actually get a better pump.
Mm-hmm.
Because their body's nutritive equilibrium is not so upset by the gross overtraining, they tend to store more glycogen in the muscle, or keep more glycogen stored in the muscle with this type of training, and that's an important factor in the pump.
Right.
is your body's nutritive equilibrium, how much glycogen you have in the body being one factor. But that it doesn't matter whether you get a pump or not. Getting a pump is not a surefire sign or indication that you stimulated growth. If it was, Bill, then most of the bodybuilders who have been around for some time would have, all of them would have 22-inch arms or more. Because most bodybuilders, all bodybuilders get pumped every time they work out.
Almost.
But they don't grow every time they work out.
Okay, so I don't need to watch for a pump to know that I've got enough exercise. Because a lot of bodybuilders go to the gym and
I get that a lot. Let me elaborate on that just a little bit for the listener. Because I get it from so very many people. The pump is only temporary.
Mm-hmm.
The pump is nothing more than the mechanical pumping of the blood and fluids into the muscle. They get into the muscle faster than they can exit. It feels good. You are bigger temporarily, but it goes away. Getting a pump is not necessary to stimulate muscle growth. There is something that goes on neuromuscularly on the last rep of a set carried to failure, which is very special. There is something that goes on physiologically once again in that particular phenomenon that is responsible for flipping on the growth machinery inside the muscle cell. It has little or nothing to do with the pump.
Right.
I see bodybuilders get pumped all the time. I see very few bodybuilders who grow all the time.
Right.
If getting a pump was a surefire sign of growth stimulation, every bodybuilder in the world would be spectacularly successful because they all get pumped, sometimes a little bit better than others.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. Now, what about a soreness is another thing that bodybuilders are often watched for to try to measure. I get pretty sore after these one-set workouts. Is that a good sign, or?
That's another, here we're talking about feelings, an interesting philosophical phenomenon. Most people don't know how to identify their feelings anyway.
Mm-hmm.
This is a conceptual theory of bodybuilding. It's not a theory or system or guideline based on feelings or instincts. Nobody knows what produces or causes muscular soreness. No one really knows quite what it is except that it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one knows what it is, it shouldn't figure centrally into an individual's thinking. It should not affect the way they guide their training efforts even slightly. I mean, how could you anyway? If you didn't get sore after a given workout, what do you do the next workout? Bend over backwards so you get sore? Right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get sore, then what the hell are you going to do the next workout? Try to get sore?
Mm-hmm.
For what reason? If getting sore, Bill, was an absolute requirement or an indication that growth, or if getting sore was a requirement of getting bigger, of stimulating growth, I never would have been Mr. Universe because I almost never got sore.
Really?
The only time I got sore, and this is true for most people, including you, 99.9%, if not 100% of all of you, most people only get sore after a layoff, or if they make a radical change in their exercises, or if they include exercises that involve more stretching.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't you that your chest gets very sore when you add dumbbell flies, when they stretch
Right.
in the extended position?
Definitely.
You don't have to get sore after a workout. Getting sore is not a sign that you did anything positive for yourself. It just hurts.
Mm-hmm. So it is.
Don't worry about the pump and don't worry about soreness. They are feelings that are not all that important.
Okay, so either one of them, you might get a pump, you might not. You might get sore, and you might not from an effective workout.
Yeah, if you're gauging your workouts by your feelings, by whether or not you're getting a pump or getting sore, then you're addicted to those feelings.
Right.
What you should be guided by is not feelings which you're barely able to identify the significance of, but by your knowledge. Your knowledge of the theory of high-intensity training, the one and only possible valid theory of productive bodybuilding exercise.
Now, how do you know when to train again? Let's say I worked out Monday, and what do I do? You take off Tuesday, you train again.
Bill, I can tell you without a doubt, it's always a mistake to train 2 days in a row.
Okay, I agree with that.
You have to understand that, again, the body doesn't grow during the workout, it grows during the rest period.
Right.
We have learned through observation that training 2 days is always a mistake because 24 hours between workouts is not enough time to allow for full recovery and full growth.
Right.
The first thing you do after a workout, Bill, is not grow but recover.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Put back what was used up. When you're done working out, you don't feel the same as you did before the workout, do you?
Right.
You're exhausted. Something was used up. The first thing your body will do after the workout, therefore, is devote its energy and resources to recovery or compensate for the exhaustive effects of the workout. That takes time. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It can take up to several days for some people. It is only once the body has fully compensated for the exhaustive effects of the workout, i.e. recovered, that it will then devote its energy and resources to overcompensation, or putting back a little bit more than was there before the workout. Remember, recovery is compensation, putting back what was used up. Growth is overcompensation, putting back a little bit more than was there before the workout. Do you see what would happen, Bill, if you were to work out again before compensation is fully completed?
You would destroy the opportunity to make
overcompensate. Overcompensate. Even if you're working different muscle groups. Remember from the first tape, I emphasized that in addition to having a localized effect on the muscle you're working, exercise also has a systemic effect. It affects the whole body, the entire physical system. I have seen with my phone consultation clients and my in-the-gym clients that they do best on an every 72 to 96 hour program.
Okay, so I can train my chest on Monday, then again on Friday, or wait a minute.
No. You would train your chest and back on Monday.
Okay.
Take Tuesday and Wednesday off, and on Thursday, and on an every 72-hour program, you would do your shoulders and arms.
Right.
Then you would take Friday and Saturday off, and on Sunday train your legs.
Okay.
Now the next week, Bill, you would not train Monday. You would take Monday and Tuesday off, train Wednesday.
Right.
Every 72 hours.
Breaking the body up into 3 groups.
Right.
That's just one way to do it.
Now, I don't have everybody doing this. There are those individuals, remember, that don't tolerate high-intensity exercise as well as others.
Mm-hmm.
In those cases, especially, overtraining often results from overlapping. When I see certain individuals not making satisfactory progress on the program I just recommended, I eliminate as much overlap as I can. I'll take the shoulders and arms out of the program entirely, consolidate it into a basic compound exercise routine, focusing on the major muscle groups, the chest and the back, and the legs.
Mm-hmm.
The chest work indirectly and even directly stimulates the shoulders and triceps.
Right.
And the back work does the same thing with the biceps. I have had clients that have made better progress with their shoulders and arms after eliminating specific exercises for those areas. Remember, overtraining is often the result of overlapping. When I say it's easy to overtrain, I ain't joking.
Right.
I used to say years ago, Bill, that high-intensity, heavy-duty training was like going out into the intense August sun. You'll get a suntan every time you go out, but even 1 minute more exposure than required or needed. Remember the importance of the concept need. 1 minute more than is needed, you'll get a sunburn. Then I came to understand a few years ago that I was wrong. It's more demanding than high-intensity sunlight in August. It's more like going out into the intense August sun with the sun 5 million miles closer to the Earth.
Right.
Do you see where that would necessitate a reduced volume and frequency of exposure?
Yep.
Now, just recently, I amended it again, and I'm not spreading it thick here to make a point. High-intensity, heavy-duty training. Weight training in general is not like going out into the intense August sun. It's more like jumping into a fire. It'll warm you up, but 1 minute more exposure than required, it'll burn you.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be careful with this stuff. Remember, science is an exacting discipline. You wouldn't expect the director to yell down to the end of the control module down there at Nassau to throw a blue switch instead of the red one.
Right.
You wouldn't want your anesthesiologist to give you any more anesthesia than is precisely required. What we're looking for here is the exact, the precise, the specific amount of exercise required. Any more than that is overtraining.
Right. Well, Mike, I'm getting the flash from the tape. We're getting ready to run out of time. Again, I think we're going to end up doing part 3.
Okay. I enjoyed it again also.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell people in the Audiotape summary how to get your books.
Okay.
They should really get the whole course. You have the nutrition book, the heavy duty book, and a training log. We didn't even get to talk about how important it is to keep a training journal, but they can read about that in your book. And article coming up in the next issue of Muscle Media 2000.
I would also like to add real quickly here, my thanks to you and to the scores of individuals that were so enthusiastic in their response. The ones who wrote me letters, sent me faxes, and called me to, if not get a phone consultation, then to let me know how much they appreciated that first tape. It was much appreciated.
They're a good group of people. I really know that they are a good group of people. I've had the opportunity to meet some of them, and I'm glad.
They prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that bodybuilders, not all bodybuilders are dumb.
Right.
At Muscle Media 2000, we're always glad to hear from you. Write to Muscle Media 2000 at Box 277, Golden, Colorado, 80402-0277. Or call our customer service department in Golden, Colorado at 1-800-615-8500.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. There's plenty more from the Muscle Media 2000 audio tape series that I have to get through. But before we do, next week's video is actually going to be covering a contest from the 1970s. And this time I'm going to stray away from the professional league, and we're going to cover an amateur contest. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like more bodybuilding content, check out my Instagram page, and that's @RetroMuscleMags. Okay, see you guys next week.